Almost. I don't have an audio interface in. Hang in. You're not live?
We have stuff paired.
I'd like to call this meeting of the Board of Education to order. Roll call, please.
Ms. Coco?
Here.
Mr. Gomez? Mr. Harris?
Here.
Ms. Schaefer?
Here.
Ms. White?
Here. And motion to approve the agenda. It is recommended that the Board of Education approve the agenda of the August 17th, 2022 Board of Education meeting.
So moved.
Second.
Any changes?
No.
Okay. Roll call, please.
Ms. Coco?
Aye.
Mr. Harris?
Aye.
Mrs. Schaefer? Ms. White?
Aye. Welcome. Our vision, Cuyahoga Falls City Schools, the hub of our community, committed to a culture of caring. We innovate, we create, we personalize education for all. Move on to informational items. This meeting is a meeting of the Cuyahoga Falls Board of Education and Public for the purpose of conducting the school district's business. It is not a public community meeting, although there are opportunities for public participation. If an individual wishes to address the board regarding a topic found on the meeting agenda, the individual must complete a registration form found inside the attendance notebook and then present it to the treasurer. Following the introduction of the topic by the board president, followed by board discussion, the individual will be recognized. If an individual wishes to address the board regarding a topic not found on the meeting agenda, she or he must notify the superintendent and/or board president of the topic no later than 3 business days in advance of the meeting. These individuals may share their comments during the board business portion of the agenda. In both cases, the individual will preface comments by an announcement of his or her name and address and limit comments to 3 minutes. All statements should be directed to the board president. No person may address or question board members individually. In addition, in public session, the board will not hear complaints about school personnel nor against any person connected with the school system. An unabridged board agenda for this meeting can be found on your electronic device at www.boarddocs.com. For your convenience, hard copies of the board agenda may be found on the table by the sign-in book. The next regularly scheduled meetings of the Cuyahoga Falls Board of Education is September 7th, 2022 at 5:30 p.m. in the Cuyahoga Falls High School Library, 2300 4th Street, Cuyahoga Falls. There is a Finance Committee meeting on August 23rd, 2022 at 9 a.m. in the Board of Ed Meeting Room, 421 Stowe Avenue, Cuyahoga Falls. The next construction planning meeting is on August 25th, 2022 at 6 p.m. in the Cuyahoga Falls High School Library, 2300 4th Street, Cuyahoga Falls. And if you are able, if you'll stand and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. And now on to presentations. Our summer graduates. It is recommended that the Board of Education grant a Cuyahoga Falls High School diploma to the following individuals who have now completed requirements stated by the state of Ohio for high school graduation. Abby Louise Capitos Davis, Ella Grace Gill, and Jack Albert Noah. Congratulations. congratulations to all three of our summer graduation graduates, and you can leave if you'd like to, get ice cream, whatever, celebrate. That's fine with us. Thank you so much, and congratulations again.
Patty. Patty. Patty, we need to motion and vote on that.
Oh,
on the
oh,
graduates.
can I have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
And roll call, please.
Mr. Harris?
Aye.
Mrs. Schaefer?
Aye.
Ms. White?
Aye.
Ms. Coco?
Aye.
And our second presentation, ESSER funding, from our treasurer, Miss Christy Stoykoy.
I'm gonna go after they go so that they don't have to
Yeah,
listen
that's
to me.
fine. That's fine. Let them clear.
Not that Esther's not exciting to hear.
I know.
Thrilling.
It's always my favorite.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Oh, are we doing the air first?
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay, sorry about that. Presentation will be on air conditioning, Wright Engineering first.
So use the mic, or can everyone hear me? Yep, you're good. Okay. Okay, cool. Hi, how's everyone doing? I'm Eric Wright with Wright Engineering. I'm an HVAC engineer. I specialize in HVAC replacements for existing buildings, much of which is in the K-12 and higher ed market. I'm a principal at Wright Engineering, and today I want to talk about a study we performed for the district regarding adding cooling to a couple of the elementary schools, and also looking at some of the other HVAC systems at the school. Quick outline of the presentation. We're going to go over the existing HVAC conditions, issues we found during all of our inspections and site observations, what our recommended solutions are for both schools and the advantages of those solutions, an opinion of probable project cost for what our proposed solutions are, an overall project schedule, what that would look like if we implemented those solutions. And we're going to go over just a qualifier for Wright Engineering, showing you our kind of performance budgeting these types of projects that are similar. So just kind of diving into it, you can see on the screen we've got pictures of some HVAC equipment here, both at Lincoln and Richardson Elementary. That's really the focus of our study. These are hot water and steam unit ventilators in Lincoln and Richardson respectively. These unit vents are approaching, some of them nearly 70, a little over 70 years old. The youngest ones being just over 50 years old, which is well past what we call their serviceable lifespan, where the OEM actually makes parts and stocks parts for repair. So basically anything that happens to these things now is put together, kind of third-party hodgepodge to get these things to continue operating. Continuing with that, on the next slide here, we've got existing, and again, another unit vent at Lincoln, different style, and ceiling mounted gym air handling unit, which is served by steam at Richardson. Just giving you a kind of a visual of what we're looking at. Next slide is the heating plants. Neither of these schools currently have air conditioning, so just heating systems. And at Lincoln, they have a heating hot water boiler plant that's about 23 years old. At Richardson, they have a steam boiler plant, which is about 20 years old now. One of the downsides at Richardson is that the steam piping, the boilers look new, but the steam piping, the vanes are really rotted and deteriorated. And I believe the school has suffered a pretty hefty cost throughout the last few years repairing those pipes on an emergency basis. Next slide regarding controls. Every HVAC system nowadays and the last 50 years have control systems. These controls you see on the screen are pretty much completely obsolete, meaning there's no repair or upgrade that can be acquired from the original controller manufacturer to make these function for, you know, a modern control in today's world. These controls would have to be completely replaced in order to get up to current energy code and be able to control these things for energy efficiency. So the issues we identified during our study, obviously we don't have air conditioning in either school, and that was a want of the district. We know that. We have antiquated temperature control systems with many failed pieces and parts. Pieces and parts that, again, aren't OEM, so you're looking at kind of a hodgepodge solution to make things work, which ultimately leads into just putting a lot of this equipment in hand mode meaning it just runs 24/7, valves stuck in a position, things like that, so you end up with overheating, underheating, inefficiency, dumping heat out the window, the whole 9 yards, which we talked about energy inefficiency. And another big item is the lack of ventilation. The way the old unit ventilators and air handling units were designed, it does not meet the current ASHRAE 62.1 ventilation standard, which isn't surprising in a school of this age. This is pretty typical of what we run into. Ventilation codes have changed. Just in my career, they've changed 3 or 4 times. And of course, that leads to indoor air quality issues, which, you know, is of extreme importance, especially with COVID over the last few years. So solutions, the solutions we offer are going to be very similar for Lincoln and Richardson with some nuances because they have very similar HVAC personalities. Unit ventilators, heating only system is essentially what both schools have. So our recommendation is we replace the 67-year-old unit ventilators, which is all the unit ventilators at Lincoln. We add air conditioning with the new unit ventilators that go in. We add air conditioning to them, and that includes like a coil for cooling inside of the unit vent and a rooftop condensing unit to discharge that heat to the outdoors. Those condensing units would serve multiple classroom unit ventilators, new ventilators, so 8 to 12 approximately per condensing unit. In order to accommodate that, we have to upgrade the electrical service to an 800 amp 3-phase service. Probably doesn't mean a lot to you, but obviously we're adding an electrical load on the building besides just lighting and receptacle loads and other process loads that are there. We would backfeed the existing service, put a new panel in, and then serve all of our air conditioning off the new panel. And then upgraded controls for all the unit ventilators, anything we replace so that it has graphics, it can be scheduled. We can run energy efficiency sequences of operation for them. We can run ventilation only mode, things that bring you up to a modern day 2020 HVAC system and energy code compliance and indoor air quality compliance. The next slide just kind of shows you your overall floor plan of Lincoln, first, second, and third floors. We're identifying kind of a scope of just hitting the unit ventilators or replacing the unit ventilators within the classrooms themselves, kind of getting the best bang for our buck in that strategy so that we don't worry about transient spaces like the corridor or spaces that students aren't going to be in very often like restrooms. It's mainly where the production happens, which is the teaching in the classrooms. So Richardson, again, a similar story at Richardson with a few differences. Replacing unit vents, adding a VRF system, variable refrigerant flow, for cooling, upgrading the electrical service. The difference here is we also recommending replacing the steam system with a heating hot water system. That requires new boilers, new piping. There's various advantages to that, which we'll get into. And then if we do that, we have to replace all the supplemental small heaters throughout the building that are currently steam with hot water, which we'll get into. And that includes the gym air handling units, which we would replace with a rooftop unit that would be cooling and gas-fired heat. And then also, like we talked, same story with control upgrades so that you have proper control throughout the building, a building automation system, and you'll be able to have teachers be able to adjust temperatures within their room, and they'll have local control, and then that control can be globally controlled by the building automation system. Floor plan of Richardson, a little smaller school. Again, the same story, hitting the key places that give us the most value for replacing HVAC. This slide's just meant to kind of give you a visual on what a VRF system looks like. VRF system is not so different than what you probably have at home. Outdoor condensing unit, indoor evaporator coil that's attached to your furnace. The difference with this system is, one, it's a little larger. Two, one condensing unit's larger and can serve up to 8 to 12 of these unit ventilators, which reduces the amount of compressors, reduces maintenance, and saves you energy. A VRF system is also a heat pump, so it can actually provide redundant heating for you as well. So in the event that your boilers go down or for whatever reason you have to service those in the winter, you can actually heat with that system. This slide's going to be a little hard to read, but you maybe have it in front of you. So this is our opinion of cost breakdown for Lincoln. The important thing to note here is when we do our pricing and we do estimating, we get pricing from local vendors for this equipment. We have linear square footage or linear and square foot pipes for various, or costs for various things like piping, insulation, valves, and what have you. general conditions, the whole 9 yards. At the bottom, you're gonna see overhead and profit, you're gonna see an opinion of probable construction cost value, about 4 cells from the bottom, and then you're gonna see a construction contingency about 10%. So on this particular school, I think we're at about 1.6 million for the probable construction costs. We recommend holding a 10% contingency to that. That contingency covers any unknowns. We haven't designed it yet. That's what we do at Wright Engineering. We design it. When we go and get intimate with the systems, sometimes we run into things that just make sense to correct while we see them, smaller things. So carrying that 10% contingency also covers you for any price escalation, which is happening quarterly now it's unheard of in the material world. And then we have an estimated AE fee that's just for architectural engineering services like us, which brings us a total project cost, I think, about 1.89 million for Lincoln. Same story for Richardson, same layout, same template, different numbers. Getting down to the bottom, we've got 10% contingency with about 200 grand there, and I think a total about 2.34 million for the Richardson project. And Richardson, one of the reasons it's greater is because of the steam plant conversion to heating hot water there. Even though it's a smaller school, we're replacing virtually the whole heating system. And that pricing does include all the electrical upgrades, everything we recommended. So advantages of what we're recommending are dependable new equipment, less maintenance. You have a single piece of equipment that can do heating and cooling. There were other options we investigated in our full report, and those options really aren't recommended because you would have a heating system fighting a cooling system and vice versa in the shoulder months. It's not optimal. The other advantage of this is you're going to have proper control, like you've built these buildings that building pretty much new as far as the classroom goes from an HVAC standpoint. And you'll have redundant heating available, like I talked about, through the VRF system. If the boiler system, for whatever reason, is down, you're going to have improved energy efficiency from that standpoint of natural gas. Obviously, we're going to be using a little more electric because we're adding cooling through the shoulder months in the summer. And then an important thing to note is the safety factor at Richardson with the steam versus hot water. Steam in the K-12 world is slowly becoming obsolete. In fact, it's becoming obsolete in just about every market sector unless you need steam for some reason, like humidity or sterilization or things like that. Steam is a difficult system because it's basically distilled water. And distilled water and carbon steel pipe, they don't get along too well with oxygen. That's why your steam pipe, being 60, 80 years old, is failing. It's very typical for a school that age. In addition, a steam boiler requires a lot more maintenance. And I've worked a lot with K-12s, and I've been there when a boiler melts down because the safeties didn't trip because they were covered with scale due to improper water treatment, and it could have been a catastrophe. But luckily, the boiler literally just melted, rather than high-pressure boiler would blow up. And you can Google that. That's a different story. But that's one of the reasons we recommend switching from heat or steam to heating hot water. There's an investment needs to be made either way. If you replaced all your steam and condensate piping, that is a substantial cost just to correct that issue. But you'd still be left with a steam boiler system that for the next 10 years or so is going to be a little bit of a liability for the district. So overall project schedule, top line there is design, so it's broken down into 4 major parts: design, the bidding phase, pre-construction, and construction. Design for a project of this scale is about 10 weeks. Bidding is going to be, per the state, 23 days. I've got it so that we're bidding in early December, giving us a month to review bids so that sometime in the board meeting in maybe January, there's an approval of the project to move forward. And we would review shop drawings at that time. That's just equipment submittals, so we can get those released for manufacturing. Right now, it's 18 weeks for that cooling equipment, which is your long lead item for this project. That can change. They have been changing. A year ago, that would have been 8 to 10 weeks. Now it's 18. We're hoping that goes down, but it hasn't started to go down yet as far as lead times go. But that gets us equipment arriving on site right about when school ends, which is perfect for demolition and installation through the summer of 2023. This budget performance scorecard, probably hard to read, but this is Wright Engineering's experience the last 3 years with similar type projects for various higher ed, K-12 clients. I think there's a few miscellaneous clients in there of some of the other similar HVAC projects we did, you know, budgeting versus where bids actually came in. So we're putting together a budget for you for the purposes of planning. Our goal through the design phase, of course, is to get you, one, the best bid, and hold the contractor accountable to our bid and specs throughout construction to get you that value for that low bid. So a plan spec bid process. Let's see here. So that's it. I went through things kind of quickly. I know HVAC is a super fun topic probably. So if you have any questions, I'm happy to answer them. Yes?
I have a couple questions. The condenser units on the roofs, are they similar to what we have at Roberts? Is that kind of like what that's the kind of the same thing? And when you talk about the rooms that would be covered with air conditioning, and I know you mentioned the gymnasium, would the kitchen or cafeteria at Richardson be included in that, or the kitchen at Lincoln? It's small, I couldn't see.
Yes. Yeah, that would be included at Richardson, yep.
And I have another question.
Yes.
For like service and maintenance, is that something that we would be doing in-house, or is that something that typically is done by then you all?
In this type of system, if you have folks that do all your filter changes, you would do that in-house.
We would do it in-house.
If there was a major, like, compressor failure, which by the way would be warranted for 5 years, that would be something you'd contract out if that type occurred. But typical preventive maintenance could be done in-house.
And my question kind of goes along with that. You had mentioned that the ventilation standards change quite often.
Yep.
What would that work look like going forward, keeping that updated? Again, is that something that we would?
Yeah, you would be in good shape. The ventilation standard, so the ventilation standard went, I'm sorry, I think when I graduated college, it used to be just 20 CFM a person,
Okay.
simple calculation. And then we realized we were over-ventilating buildings. So, and energy became a big concern in the late 2000s. So legislation changed to this really complicated ASHRAE calculation called the ventilation rate procedure that based it on the type of space, which has to do with what type of things are happening there, number of people, and it took it down to like 10 to 12 CFM a person.
Okay.
Which we would do that, and we'd add about 30% to it, only because the indoor air quality issues, and there's also there's technologies like needlepoint bipolar ionizers we put in, that's included in these budgets for all the unit ventilators. They basically clean the air. Ventilation calculation, all the science, is all about dilution.
Okay.
And code says you can either dilute it with this calculation, or you can prove you're cleaning it with some type of filter. Like you could put a HEPA filter in and not bring in any outside air, but you're not gonna wanna pay for HEPA.
Right.
That's an example, but ionization allows us to actually reduce that ventilation almost 50% even lower, which saves energy, coil sizes, first cost, the whole 9 yards. So, yeah, we would be, basically, the ventilation hasn't ever risen in my career.
Okay.
It's only gone down. And I don't expect the COVID thing to, one, it's gonna take years for it to change. Two, more than likely what'll happen is improved filter requirements and cleaning devices like ionization or UV lighting
Okay.
versus increase, because you know, when you can't just go increase ventilation, without sacrificing comfort,
Right.
unless the system was sized for that,
Awesome.
which isn't the case generally in any K-12 or higher ed. But
Thank you.
Do we currently have bipolar ionization in school? So are we gonna be replacing that, or like putting that?
No,
Back.
what they would do in the scope of work, the units that he puts in would have ionization in those units.
So that what we're currently using would kind of be unnecessary?
No, we would see whatever parts we could use
Oh,
for
okay.
the other elementaries. Now, remember, the plan would be the following year to do the 3 remaining, but we do have middle schools and stuff like that we would salvage whatever we could, but yes, we currently have bipolar ionization.
those could easily be salvaged. We've done that because they're literally, I mean, I can put one in 20 minutes. They're that easy. You just disconnect a couple wires and put them back on. It's like a little device. So,
I just have one question.
Yeah.
With the construction phase, it looks like the equipment lead time, you have it at 18 weeks, which you said it's become longer and longer, as we all know, everything
Yeah,
has
it's
been.
currently 18, yeah.
Which basically runs right into your construction time, which is a really tight timeline between the end of school and the beginning of school.
Right.
So if, for some reason, in this crazy world, the equipment lead time were to be later than anticipated, how would that affect the beginning of our school year as far as your work?
That's a
that you're doing in
great
the school?
great question. So this is happening right now this summer. We've got a multitude of K-12 projects going on where we're supposed to get equipment on May 20th, and then May 10th, we ordered it in November, and in May 10th, we're told it's gonna be August 26th. So we're looking at temp cooling and everything. So what I would recommend we do here, especially if that 18 weeks doesn't start going down between now and say mid-September, is you pre-purchase it. So you skip all that bidding period and design of the project. I send a spec out, we get 3-4 bidders to bid just the material that's long lead, and the school buys that directly. The ownership of that gets transferred to the contractor per our specs in that installation contract for our drawings. You see what I'm saying? So you don't have to worry about any of it, but that's the strategy that's best to do. You pre-purchase it so that it looks like it's gonna be showing up in February or March, and then if you do get a delay, we got 3-month buffer. The reality is, we don't demo anything until that material's here. That's the lesson learned from this summer that a lot of people learned is, we thought it was gonna ship in 1 week, they should let us know if it was gonna be longer, and that's not what's happening. It's literally like that week, it was supposed to ship, we demoed out, at University of Akron, we demoed out 400 fan coil units in dorms, and that happened to us. And we had kids coming back paying $1,000–1,200 a month to live in those dorms. They expected air conditioning and HVAC, so it was, an around-the-clock, 3-shift construction, finding anyone who could work to get it done. We made it, but, it could have been very disastrous. So to protect you, equipment arrives before we do demo. In the case that something really goes awry and it ends up taking all summer to build it or not get the material, then it waits until summer 2024. That's the reality.
Thank you.
That's a great question. Any other questions, or?
If I may, Madam President? I had a couple questions, just curious about the rooftop. I'm assuming we don't have another option of where to put those units?
I haven't looked at it. You could put them on the ground and duct up. We could do a ceiling hung unit. We could replace it in kind up in that ceiling and just put a condensing unit on the roof. There are other options.
And you feel that that's the best way? I know that I've in previous experiences had some challenges with rooftop units, but obviously you feel that that's the best way to go?
It's probably the value.
Okay.
There's definitely options. The Ohio School Design Manual, if you're using state money, they don't want any rooftops on the roof.
Yeah.
That's their thing.
Right.
And I understand why that is. For retrofit applications, if you're looking at funding a project that's $100,000 versus $250,000, you could do $100,000 with rooftops, $250,000 with some OSDM approved solution. Generally, the boards decide to go rooftops. That's why I put that in there. I thought it would probably be the decision you'd likely make, but there are other options. And I'm not saying they're 2.5 times the cost,
Yeah.
but they're more expensive. We could put an indoor unit with an outdoor condenser that's larger than what you'd have at home on the side of the building, height with landscaping. That's an option too. So you have nothing on the roof there.
Okay, and then the energy bills, what this will do for our, budgeting purposes, I'm assuming. I'm sure they're very efficient, but even with that said, is there any idea of what we can expect from that?
Yeah, we don't have it produced yet,
Yeah.
but we could do a calculation to tell you what you should expect in additional electric
Okay,
and probably a savings in gas, so that you have kind of some idea and value. It's ultimately the sum of those two numbers is gonna be more
okay.
because you're adding that
Sure.
electric, but,
Yeah, if we could get that, I'd appreciate that.
yep, we can
Okay,
do that.
thank you.
If you could also just briefly speak to the efficiency, even the boilers, the gas-fired boilers, what efficiency they're at right now versus new hot water boilers,
Yeah.
how efficient they would be. I think Eric has probably a couple numbers for that.
Yeah, so You get a boiler these days, it's firing around 92% efficient. A steam boiler like you have at Richardson that's 20 years old is firing about 75% efficient. That's when it's firing. The bad thing about steam is that if your steam system traps and whatnot aren't working, you're leaking steam by, you'll take steam back to what you call a feed tank, and that steam will literally just be billowing out through a stack. You see that in buildings all around. You go down Goodyear in Akron, you see those stacks. I've done a lot of work at Goodyear. That is literally them throwing money out the table. That happens at a smaller scale in a system like, so I don't know exactly what you're firing at. The boiler's rated for 75% efficiency, but you're probably looking at 65% efficiency the way your system is at Richardson. And then the new are about 90%. That's the thermal efficiency of firing the fuel and how much heat you get out of it versus how much heat goes through the stack. So we can show you those numbers. I mean, those percentages are probably nice to hear, but I can show you what that means from a consumption standpoint. So we can do that. Give you a supplement. All right. No problem. Any other questions?
We've gone over so many times,
Yeah.
I don't have any.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, we've been. Yep. You're very welcome. Thank you for
for your
the opportunity.
Thank you. And now, Ms. Stoykoy, the ESSER funding presentation.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Skip ahead. Skip ahead.
Oh boy, she's got a little bits in here.
That's always good.
Okay. Ryan's gonna be my clicker. Good. Hi. Back talking about ESSER again. Good times. So this is a requirement with the third round of ESSER that we report out twice a year to the community on what we have spent the funds on, budgeted. So just a little review. I'm not going to read all these verbatim, but what the authorized uses for these funds are. So basically any activity that kind of falls under any of the other grants that we receive from the federal government, providing principals with resources to address the needs of students, address low-income students, disabilities, English learners, preparedness, response efforts by the district, sanitation, cleaning supplies, anything like that. You can go to the next slide. You can see the list goes on mental health services and supports, technology, which obviously we did a lot of with our initial rounds of ESSER there. So there are quite a few. List keeps going. We did the bipolar ionization with the second round of ESSER, addressing learning loss. So there's a really a wide scope. This was also our largest sum of all of the ESSER funds that we received, was this ESSER 3 round. So, blah, 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 I know. It's very nerdy. So, ESSER 3, we got a little bit over $5 million. As a recap, we could have used them for expenditures that went all the way back to March 13th, 2020 when the pandemic started, and we are allowed to use them through September 30th of 2024. And then, as I said, every 6 months review our plan, and as appropriate, revise its plan, which you'll kind of see it hasn't really changed a whole lot, but obviously as things have happened, we've gotten actual costs. When we first started this, we were looking at 3 years out. Now we've got 1 year in, we've got a little bit better idea. We have a plan. So, this is all falls under the federal government, which with our other federal grants, we're required to kind of have those budgets approved and those budget details. This follows a similar pattern, and this is kind of how they have it set up into these different categories, so that's what you'll see here. So salaries and benefits, nothing has changed here. We have hired actually 3, but 2 of the literacy specialists at the elementary levels are paid for out of the ESSER grant. Their salary and benefits that started last year will continue through this year and the following year. So you can see kind of what we've spent so far last year. I will say we had 2 last year. One was paid through the ESC and one was paid through our payroll, which is what you're looking at here. This year it shifts. They're both being paid by us and not through the ESC. So it's just a little different why it only says we spent 63,000 some last year. That was one person. You will see it will increase. There will be 2 that we paid directly this year, and same thing for benefits. Purchase services. So some of our support services, and some of these are entangled with some of our former ESSER funds that we still have that we're paying off. One of those being our social workers. So the 2 social workers that we added last year, they have come out of ESSER 2 originally, and then once that has, we no longer have any money in that, they will shift over into this budget. So right now we don't have any expenses for social workers, but we will as we continue. We plan to continue to keep them through, and pay for them out of here through 2024. File scanning, which I've talked about numerous times, but pretty much between HR, student services, and my office, to have those files scanned, so in the case there is any kind of long-term closure, we are all able to access that. We're all able to do that digitally. That technology's raining. So that will be a huge, huge help. It'll also help clean up some space in the offices, which is great. And the YMCA elementary after-school program, that was just last year that we did that. This year, it's no cost, correct?
It is supposed to be no cost to the district or families, correct?
Okay.
There are some, in both contracts, there are some in-kind
Yeah.
notes, yes.
So, so this will take a little bit of a shift. It's a little different model this year than it was this year. So, or this year than it was this past year. Excuse me. So that will be a kind of a one-time expense in FY22 and some carryover into this fiscal year, just paying off the remainder of last year. Wow. And then here's where. Hold on, I went too far. Here's where the bulk of everything is, as you can see, where we really tried to address a lot of those different areas that we talked about in the beginning for uses. So you can see a number of textbook adoptions. Some of these were previously slotted to be out of the emergency levy. We shifted them to here. That emergency levy was done, that plan was done back in 16-17. Some of the things did not stay on the same timeline. Some of the things obviously have an extremely, costs have increased at the time. So you can see we did science K-5, math K-5, literacy K-5, ELA 6-12, and then some math at the compacted levels there for 6th and 7th graders. We've also done electronic subscriptions out of here, so our instructional, a lot from the previous years, we used Edmentum. That was paid for out of here. We used our MAP, we used the MAP testing, that has come out of here to help. And you'll see some others that we used on more of the technology side that's kind of non-instructional. We have some of those as well. And then class fees, as you know, last year we didn't have any other than like the tech fee. This year we don't have any other than, those career tech, those different ones. So we have set aside those class fees, K-5, 6, 12, and that will continue into next year going forward. And then obviously that's something we'll have to have a conversation on at that point of kind of where we wanna go, with those after that. So that's a bigger conversation for later. As you can see, electronic subscriptions, as I just talked about, so Go Guardian that we use, this was one, it also originally kind of got paid out of the ESSER two, and now it's shifting into this year, Ryan scored a deal, he haggled them, and we got it for, we got it for cheaper, so you can see that expense has now moved to, ESSER three, and then custodial supplies, of course, still the sanitation and cleaning supplies, they've been in every single one of our ESSER budgets, and will continue to do so until this grant, no longer exists. Capital outlay, so this would be any of our equipment, so we did buy last fiscal year, instruments, so there were many students, especially coming back and being in person, and the music departments had kind of come to us with, there are a lot of kids that would like to be involved, but they can't afford these instruments. But if they had some for them to loan out, and so we did make a purchase. I think of about 30 different instruments for that department. So that was about $25,000. And then obviously a continuation. Most of the bipolar ionization. And upgrading those HVAC controls, bipolar ionization in the buses, started in ESSER two. There was a big chunk, so I wish it only cost whatever we have in there, $250,000, but it was not. It's continuation, moving on. So there's still a few more, I think, this year with some HVAC controls that we'd like to update to help make everything run with that bipolar ionization smoothly. So grand totals, you can see, of our budget in those different categories, that little over $5 million. So we spent about $1 million of that last year. So far this year, we've spent about $842,000. And we have about $761,000 in that total encumbered. So those are current purchase orders that are in the process. We may not have received things yet or paid that bill yet, in the process. So total expenditures a little under $2 million over the course of the 2 years, with that pending out there, and still a balance of a little over $2 million. So, I know this is like crazy, and then I had to add in here, because my children are very good at this. These are my 2 youngest, and they like to practice this in the pool, like they're in Stranger Things. And I was quite impressed with them.
Do they have a song to save them?
I don't know. We need to find out. Yes. So they really enjoyed. They made me take their pictures a long time one night, trying to get it just perfect how they wanted, and get the bones cracking how they wanted. So. And then, I don't know if you've seen this, but obviously the song was Running Up That Hill, and I love this meme where it says, I guess you guys aren't ready for that, but your kids are gonna love it. It's pretty much how it went. So, any questions on ESSER funds? I know it's a thrilling topic.
It's very exciting.
It's so exciting.
Yeah. I can hear about it every week.
I have a question, please.
Yep.
I was just gonna ask if you could email that to me so I could read it.
Yeah, no problem.
And if somebody can email the AC one to me too, please.
Yep.
Thank you.
We good? All right.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Now, treasurer's business,
Oh, back to me.
Ms. Stoykoy.
I'd like to recommend that the Board of Education approve all items listed in the treasurer's consent agenda.
So moved.
Second.
Just the minutes and then a few donations. These have been coming in like crazy, beginning of the school year. As you can see, there is a bunch of different donations, mostly classroom supplies in the beginning of the year. I know there'll probably be a ton more next meeting, cause I know the YMCA dropped stuff off at buildings, and, my email has just been kind of flooded with people, that got donations, so it's really great, we really appreciate that, no matter how big or small.
Can I ask a question? The Bill Gates donation, is that the donors choose for their matching, do you know?
I'm not 100% sure of that, I'm gonna guess that that is,
Okay.
is what that is.
it's not
Richardson does quite a bit of donors
Okay,
choose,
okay.
so,
Yeah.
I'm gonna assume that.
Any other questions? Call the roll.
Mr. Harris?
Aye.
Ms. Schaefer?
Aye.
Ms. White?
Aye.
Ms. Coco?
Aye.
And then the next one, I'd like to recommend the Board of Education approve the July 2022 investment schedule and monthly spending report.
So moved.
Second.
All right. Real quick. Interest. This is a good one this month. I am very pleased with this after all of last year. But we, in the total of all of our, we received almost $82,000 in interest between our different funds. But what's always encouraging are the ones at the bottom that are part of our project that we're, starting to see some higher dollar amounts that we obviously need given everything else that's going on. And so that's a good sign for things to come. And then obviously even in our general account, we got 26,000 in our Star Ohio account. So, and hopefully, Huntington has said that in August, the August statement is when we should start seeing maybe some changes in some things there. We've been at that zero since pretty much the pandemic started and the Fed cut the rates and everything. But now that they've gone back up, we should start to see some different things. Something, hopefully. You don't necessarily have to pull it up, but I just want to make you aware that district commercial paper and bankers acceptances reports is something new. It's not something new, I should say. It's something that is required by the auditors that we just that you guys see it. It doesn't necessarily have to be approved, but that you're aware of kind of what went on in the last year. I think there's one on there of the sale. Oh no, there's one purchase and a few sales of the commercial paper, because that's a little bit more restricted, and you have to have certain training, like in order to be able to invest in those different things. So the auditors like us to make you guys aware, and then they have a place on their website where we upload this document for them and let them know that we've met that requirement. So you'll see that. You see that once a year then, just to kind of cover our bases there. General fund, if I can find it. Starting all over at the top. So starting out, again, we're back to starting to receive some real estate advances for the second half of this calendar year. So we'll see some July and August, some increased numbers. Expenditures, right around a little under what it's been the last couple years. So obviously a good net result. Ended the month with a little over 27 million in cash. Which you can see is about the same difference from 21 to 22, 21 to 20, or 22 to 23. So that's sitting in a good spot. Food service, same kind of position. Obviously not a lot of revenue in the summer. We don't have students here eating, so we're not getting reimbursements. That amount is from what happened over the summer, or maybe during summer school. So, I mean, you can see in like fiscal 21, those were negative numbers, so that's great, that there's something there. Expenditures, right in line, maybe a little bit more than the last couple years. A lot of that is prepping for the new school year and getting that kind of stuff. And so they're still in a great spot at overall, end of July with about 863,000 in cash. So Bill's got a good thing going on over there right now. And then the last one we'll look at is the all funds. there's not really much activity in the construction accounts. 'Cause we're really not doing a whole lot other than the interest. So there's little things here or there, but there are no significant changes. We brought in 15 million. Most of that again is real estate. Spent about 5.7 million, right in line with last year. And so we ended with 36 million, almost 37 million. You're gonna see this number continue to go down, and it's down from last year's because we're making those debt service payments, and so we made a very large one last year because we had collected that money, and we had also had the premium from the bond sale. So we made a very large purchase. It's not that we're necessarily losing money, it's just that we've kind of been sitting on that until we could sell the bonds, and now this past year we're in the debt payment schedule started, so you'll see that kind of come down a little over the next couple years and then even out because we have some larger initial payments made in the works before we kind of flatten that to a more steady payment. I think that's it.
Thank you. Any questions?
Just a comment, how much I appreciate you putting this together and doing what you do every day. Because every time I sit and comb through all of these for a meeting, it just blows my mind that somebody loves to do this. And I'm so glad that somebody does. And I'm so glad that's you.
Okay.
Thanks. I do like it.
Roll call, please.
Mrs. Schaefer? Ms. White?
Aye.
Ms. Coco?
Aye.
Mr. Harris?
Aye.
And comments?
I do not really have a whole lot. Everybody's back, so I hope everyone had a good first day that was here today for their first day, and everyone has a smooth new school year, myself included. So it's got to be better than the last couple, right? It's got to transition into something smoother.
Absolutely.
Our future is bright. Exactly.
Thank you. And Superintendent, CEO's business.
Thank you. I'd like to make a recommendation that the board approve the items listed in the consent agenda.
So moved. Any discussion? Anything?
Pretty routine items, yeah, nothing that really stands out.
All right. Any questions? Anything? Okay. Roll call, please.
Ms. White?
Aye.
Ms. Coco?
Aye.
Mr. Harris?
Aye.
Mrs. Schaefer?
Aye.
Your comments?
Oh, my turn? I didn't know if you were gonna, give me permissions to speak, or if I should
Of
just
course
speak
you
out.
can.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, I have a few things that I'd like to mention. Certainly, we're underway, as Ms. Stoykoy had mentioned here, that we welcomed our students back today, so that was a great day. We've been leading up to that with open houses. We had a number of those, and the jump starts at the middle school. Had an opportunity to go to a few of those. I didn't make it to all of them, as I was feverishly running around the district to get to as many as I could. Same with visiting the buildings today. I was able to get to 4 and see a number of students, help students with their locks at the middle school. That's always fun, the 6th graders. They were so cute, and not afraid to ask for help, which I love. So we have to get a few different locks. Some of them are a little too small for the lockers, so I recommend that they get a new one. But so it was just great. I want to thank the principals and staff. The buildings look beautiful. The children were smiling. They were happy to be back. Some don't want to admit it, but you can tell they were happy to be back. And I just saw a lot of great things happening. I visited a number of classrooms today. A lot of great icebreakers, getting to know you activities, some of which I stole to do with our administrative team. But I'm not going to tell them what they are because then they'll cheat. So just, again, happy to see them. Also, I want to thank the board publicly for their attendance at convocation. I think that makes a world of difference to see you there. I know that people appreciate seeing you there. I can tell you in my 7 years in going in year 8 now, of superintendency, I've not had every board member ever attend convocation. So you should be commended for that. You had to give of your time to be there, and so I just want to let you know that I do appreciate that. We had a great time. I think it was a nice way to kick off, the school year. And again, thanks to my administrative team and Christine, who were really, helpful and instrumental in pulling that off, and Lucas as well, who's back there. Couple little things, lastly, we have our first home football game coming up this Friday. And we also have our groundbreaking that we're looking to solidify a date there, but we are looking at the last week of September. Most likely the Wednesday, the 28th, is looking like there's nothing on the district calendar that evening, but that's not confirmed just yet, but one of those dates that week, and we will certainly get that out as soon as we have approval from the board. We will advertise that to our folks. So that's all I have. I thank you, and I thank everyone for the warm reception again, and just the positive attitude. We are gonna have a great year, and because our future is bright, because our t-shirts say so, and our sunglasses, and everything else. So that's our theme for the year. Thank you.
Thank you. And, board business, Ohio School Boards Association delegate. The board appoints one of its members as the official delegate and one member as an alternate to the Ohio School Boards Association, OSBA, annual business meeting with power to vote. The meeting will be held on Monday, November 14th, 2022. Do I have anybody that would like to?
I would like to do it again, please.
Was it Mr. Gomez, you?
Yeah. Perfect.
If you're willing.
I am willing. I shouldn't, are we? I'm sorry.
Alternate.
And an alternate. Who would like to be the alternate?
I don't mind being it unless someone else wants to be. It does not matter.
Is that Ms. Coco?
Alicia? I'm sorry, Miss Coco? And I don't think we have to vote on that, do we?
Yeah.
We do?
Yeah.
Okay, I'm sorry. So I need a motion to approve Mr. Gomez and Miss Coco as, Mr. Gomez as the delegate and Miss Coco for the alternate.
So moved.
Okay. And roll call, please.
Ms. Coco?
Aye.
Mr. Harris?
Aye.
Mrs. Schaefer? Aye. Ms. White?
Aye. On to our second item, which is data. Mr. Gomez had asked us to collect, or to let him know what kind of data we would like to know and have. So I'll open up that to discussion. Anybody want to start?
Oh, okay. So, you know, Mr. Gomez gave us a couple weeks to, think about this. I could come up with specific examples of data that, that I would be interested in seeing. But, in making a list, I went back to, I need the data that's going to help us, and I had a conversation with Ms. Coco about this, that's going to help us long-term, making our decisions on whatever we're being presented with. Some of the questions, which standards are high-performing on target and underperforming students meeting? Which standards are they struggling with? What learning resources can we recommend for specific underperforming students? Again, the data I specifically be looking for will depend on what we will be making those decisions on. And I know, Ms. Coco, we had talked about this earlier, if you wanted to expand on that a little bit.
Yeah, so I was sitting down to start to make a list, and like Mr. Harris said, I don't know exactly what data I need until I need to make a decision with data, which is what our decisions need to be based on. So I personally, speaking for myself, feel like there are a few things that, as a board, I feel that we need data on a regular basis, yearly basis, that they coincide with our goals and our vision. And beyond that, I don't feel that I want to make anyone's job harder by just producing a lot of data to produce it. But when something is being presented to us as a board, I would like to see the data of why that's needed and how it aligns with our goals for our district and how we're going to measure that with data in the future. the one thing that comes to mind with our new literacy program is how now that we have our state testing back, I know we do, because I got my daughters yesterday. But what does that look like compared to the schools that didn't have it last year? That would be data that I would like to see, for instance, to measure our literacy program, K through 5. But overall, those are my thoughts. And I think we could maybe come up with a comprehensive list of what we want moving forward on a regular basis. When we have conversations about what our, I know that we're gonna be talking about our district goals. So once those are solidified and whatever changes we know that need to be made with that, it might be easier to come up with that list of a few things that we do want on a regular basis.
Yep, I agree.
I'm sorry if I was long-winded.
No, that was great.
Ms. Schaefer?
I interpreted that assignment in a completely different way. So, when I was thinking about it, I was thinking about things that I would like to see, information that I would like to have, so that I know moving forward as a board, what things we need to be mindful of and directions that we need to go in to be proactive in some of our undertakings and policy developments. So some of the things that I thought that I might be interested in, be pertinent to our district, percentage of English language learners that are achieving proficiency in English. And one of the same things that you said, did MAP scores improve or show growth after the pilot literacy programs in the students' individual scores and also comparatively with other schools in the same grades that didn't have the program. I would like to kind of see how absenteeism in the buildings, to see how that relates to scores, graduation rates, and then also I would be interested to see the percentage of IEP goals that are being met, excuse me. So those are some of my specific ones.
Mr. Gomez?
Well, I'll start by saying this. The goal of tonight wasn't just give Dr. Salko a list that then she had to, start producing tomorrow. The goal was to try to get us started on having the conversation and trying to see if there were any broader priorities that we had some commonality on. And since I'm not there and it's a little bit hard for me to hear, if everyone could take the next week to think about what they said and send me an email, and then I can kind of compile it all together and send it out to everyone. But for me, I want to have like quantitative and qualitative data. So I want stuff like absences and discipline and growth and achievement, but I also want to know qualitatively, like, what are the things that kids get excited about in our classrooms and our buildings. And when Dr. Salko has those Ask Us sessions, what are the kinds of things that our staff members are concerned about in our buildings? So quantitative and qualitative pieces as well.
Okay, well, you asked for a list, so I did make a list of what I would like to have and see. Again, I will go back to data, what data is important for us to know and collect. And to me, it's all about reading and writing. Sorry, former English teacher here, but that's what I would like to know. And I don't know how exactly you'd want to do it, but I'd like to know the number of books, pages read, number of reading levels that they are, and this is by grade level and building, the number of different genres they're reading, and the specific standards or standards that apply to that goal. Writing by grade level and building, number of assignments, what kind of writing they're doing, the genres again. And I know that in kindergarten they could be writing letters, words, sentences, doesn't matter. I just like to know that they are writing, and the standards that apply to the writing goals and the rubrics that would be used. For gifted, pretty much the same thing, the reading levels and first of all, the numbers in gifted program. I'd also like to know the economically disadvantaged in the gifted program, how many students we have. I'd also like to know the methods of differentiated instruction, how we're reaching those gifted students in those classrooms. Then for health and wellness, I kept equity in mind. I also asked for attendance data and disciplinary data, because I want to see if we're being equitable and not just if those kids are just falling under economically disadvantaged. And finally, student participation in clubs, sports, music, and art, extracurricular activities, how many we offer and how many students participate. Because to me, when they're involved, they're engaged, and that makes sense to me. And so those are the items that I listed. That's all I have. Anyone else? Anything? Okay. Any future agenda items? None? And committee reports? Instruction Corps, Ms. Coco? We meet tomorrow?
Yes.
Okay.
We meet tomorrow.
1
I'm sorry,
o'clock.
1
No,
o'clock.
that's all right. That's fine. And then Alliance for the
Okay.
School and Community Growth, Ms. Coco?
We meet the second Tuesday in September, the 13th.
Athletics and Activity, Ms. Schaefer?
I don't have our next meeting
Okay.
date yet.
Board Policy, Mr. Gomez?
We met on Monday, and so on the next agenda, you'll see a number of board policies up for first.
First read. Okay. Business Advisory Council, Mr. Harris?
Oh, has that been, I know we moved it. Was that
Yes,
I'm sorry.
it's rescheduled for August 30th.
August 30th?
Oh, August 30th.
Mhm.
Okay.
It didn't fit, it was originally scheduled for
Right.
yesterday, which was just bad timing with going back to school.
Yeah, I'll actually have I have some information for your consideration this week that you'll get from me.
Oh, okay.
cool.
To perhaps look at a change in that.
Perfect, thank you.
Financial Advisory Committee?
We are meeting on Tuesday, the 23rd.
Thank you. Foundation and Alumni, Mr. Gomez?
They met last Tuesday, which was the same time as the planning commission meeting. So I did not make it, but I spoke with Gary Metcalf and Beth McNicholas before and after the meeting. And so some of the things are that they're looking forward to having a mini retreat on September 20th to create a strategic plan. There's a lot of great growth happening in the foundation, and they want to find ways to make that sustainable into the future. And then the other piece of information is that all the businesses that have tax abatements that require them to give money to a scholarship have filled that application for this school year.
Thank you. Legislative Liaison,
No
Mr.
updates.
None? And Student Achievement, I'm waiting on a date of when we will first meet, so I will look forward to that. And then finally, Student Wellness and Success, Mr. Gomez.
Nothing tonight.
Okay. Thank you, and we'll move to comments. I am listed first, but I'll go last since I'm leading this. Ms. Coco?
Yes, the last couple weeks were very exciting, getting to attend different events, open houses. Was able to attend both Roberts and Bullock, and then Richardson yesterday with my daughter. And Dr. Selico, thank you, and to Ms. Stewart and everyone that worked, the swag bags, thank you, Ms. McClure, for convocation. And quite a few staff that went out of their way to say, this is the best convocation we've had for a long time, or best convocation ever. And it was just really a great, hopeful day, just reiterating that our future is bright. So thank you for that. And it was just good to see the kids back in the buildings last night, and then today dropping my daughter off on her first day of elementary school. So it was awesome to see all the teachers and the energy in the building last night. So
Awesome. Mr. Gomez?
Yes, I wanted to give a shout out to the Fresh Farm. They're having their garden party on September 6th, which is before our next meeting. And I also wanted to shout out that as of August 3rd, they had donated 600 pounds of produce this year. So that was 2 weeks ago. I'm sure probably another 100 pounds in the last couple of weeks. And then there's a home and school league event at Silver Lake this Friday from 5:30 to 7. It's their delayed celebration of the new playground. And then next Friday is Lincoln's Tiger Tailgate, and people have an opportunity to dunk a school board member from 6:15 to 7.
Thank you. Mr. Harris?
Yes, first off, congratulations again to our summer graduates, and a welcome back to all students, staff, and parents, especially parents. I did get to attend convocation. It was very fun, exciting, motivating. Dr. Selico, Stewart, everyone involved. It was amazing. I had such a great time. It was very energetic. I don't think there was if anyone was yawning in that room, I don't know how. It was just so full of energy.
Joanne was that afternoon.
What's that?
Joanne was
Well, yeah, I bet
Me too.
I bet she
I
was.
will admit, me too.
We also made it to Meet the Tigers. That was incredible. The amount of students involved in sports, involved in band. I actually caught a article that was in the Beacon. Coach Parker was quoted as saying it's about the football team and their community involvement. They're more than just a box score. We look at our teams and people, what's the box score? But they're doing so much out in the community right now, and I just want to give them a shout out. And then I was glad to see that we sent some staff to the prepare training. We live in some scary times, so it's good to have some staff members being trained on some of the some interventions and how to facilitate a school crisis, and they can take this back to their staff members and teams, and get these to use. So that's all I have.
Thank you. Ms. Schaefer?
I also got to attend the Meet the Tigers, and one thing that struck me at the event was I'm a lot of times I'm watching the marching band. A lot of the students that are in the marching band, after they got into the C formation, they put their instruments down to go to their other prospective sports. So they're not only doing marching band and marching, for weeks in the summer, and then doing marching band football games, that they're also playing a sport. They're running cross country, they're playing tennis, and all those. It's really impressive. It's a lot of time commitment for students and parents. And also, I got to go to Preston's open house, which is where both my children attended. So it was kind of fun to be there. I used to work in the library there, and I saw a lot of people that I knew, children that recognized me still from years ago that are 4th and 5th graders. That was really cool. And then went to the marching band home band show, our preview of bands, which unfortunately we had to relocate twice due to unfortunate circumstances. It was a great event at the stadium. I can't remember how many, were there 8 bands playing? 9, thank you. I didn't get to march with the alumni band, but the alumni band was great. And then of course, our high school band was fantastic. A lot of positive comments too about our band in the stands. That was really cool to hear, so. Good week.
Thank you. I also wanted to say thanks to those people that did the convocation in my over 30 years. Going to these things as a teacher or a board member, it was the best one I ever attended. It was exciting and fun, and so thank you very much to those that put that together. I also want to talk a little bit about our Friday night downtown. We were all there, and it went really well. We had questions, but mostly it was positive feedback. So I was really happy to hear that. I also attended Meet the Tigers. I love that. The band is awesome, as always. And finally, I did want to talk about the library, but I didn't get that information in time for tonight. They have some wonderful news to share. I'll bring it to the next board meeting. And finally, I do have a little article. No, I'm sorry. I apologize ahead of time. But at any rate, this was in the Atlantic, why American students haven't got better at reading in 20 years. And just some things that came out. The NAP, which is the National Assessment of Educational Progress, reflects reading and math tests administered to sample students around the country. And the scores have been basically stagnant. And so in 2009 and since 1998, about a third of students performing at a level that NAP defines as proficient. And among other demographic discrepancies, what has remained wide is the gap between lower income students and more affluent peers. The reason for the utter lack of progress in reading scores, what is that? Why is that? The longstanding view has been that the first several years of elementary school should be devoted to basic reading skills. History, science, and the arts can wait. After all, the argument goes, if kids haven't learned to read, a task that is theoretically accomplished by third grade, how will they be able to gain knowledge about those subjects through their own reading? Now, the law that replaced No Child Left Behind, which is Every Student Succeeds Act in 2015, has eased the consequences of testing, but the emphasis is still on testing. One component of reading, like math primarily, is a set of skills, the part that involves decoding or making connections between sounds and the letters that represent them. But educators have also treated the other component of reading comprehension as a set of skills, when in fact it depends primarily on what readers already know. On a daily basis, teachers have their students practice skills and strategies such as making inferences or finding the main idea, and rarely do those topics connect with the students because the teachers are selecting books to go along with that skill. Cognitive scientists have known for decades that simply mastering comprehension skills doesn't ensure that a young student will be able to apply them to whatever texts they're confronted with on standardized tests and in their studies later in life. One of the cognitive scientists, Willingham, spoke about what is more important is that they know background knowledge and vocabulary, and they have, relating to the topic, more that than how much they practice comprehension skills. So background knowledge, vocabulary, to give them the know-how to understand and to read. And so students from less educated families are usually the ones who are most handicapped by gaps in knowledge. And that is kind of why I asked for those economically disadvantaged numbers, because I'm curious about that. The implication is very clear. The best way to boost students' reading comprehension is to expand their knowledge and vocabulary by teaching them history, science, literature, and the arts, using curricula that guide kids through a logical sequence from one year to the next. For example, Native Americans in Columbus in kindergarten, the colonial era in the American Revolution in first grade, the War of 1812 and the Civil War in second grade, and so on. The repetition of concepts and vocabulary in different contexts makes it more likely that they'll retain information. Another panelist, Mr. Shanahan, a professor at the University of Illinois, went on to debunk a popular approach that goes hand in hand with teaching comprehension skills. To help students practice their skills, teachers give them workbooks, etc., instead of actually having them read real books. Shanahan said, recent research indicates that students actually learn more from reading texts that are considered too difficult for them. In other words, those with more than a handful of words and concepts a student doesn't understand. What struggling students need is guidance from a teacher on how to make sense of texts designed for kids at the respective grade levels, the kind of text those kids may otherwise see only on standardized tests. This view was endorsed by Marilyn Jagger Adams at Brown University. Giving children easier text when they're weaker readers serves to deny them the very knowledge and information they need to catch up on, move on. The failure to build children's knowledge in elementary school helps explain the gap between the reading scores of students from wealthier families and those of their lower income peers, a gap that has been expanding. The bottom line is that policymakers and advocates who have pushed for more testing in part as a way to narrow the gap between the rich and the poor have undermined their own efforts. They have created a system that incentivized teachers to withhold the very thing that could accomplish both objectives, knowledge. All students suffer under the system, but the neediest suffer the most. So I just want to end there, but that is one reason I also ask for reading levels of our students to see that they're reading on grade level as they should be. And I also just want to point out that this year, with our our literacy plan that was at 2 buildings last year, we have now expanded that whole plan to all around elementary buildings, and it puts literature, science, arts, music, all of that, where the kids will be reading that, and I'm so excited about that new program expanding, and I would like to thank Dr. Cruz and the curriculum team for enabling us to go there, because as you can see, it's time and it's necessary. So thank you very much to them. And now, do I have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second.
Would you like to call the roll?
Mr. Harris?
Aye.
Mrs. Schaefer?
Aye.
Ms. White?
Aye.
Ms. Coco?
Aye.
Thank you, everyone.